Some musicians and music producers spend their entire lives hoping to end up here, in the historic studios of Music Row, the epicenter of the music industry in Nashville. These are the studios where some of music's greatest legends have made their mark. Artists like Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, and Dolly Parton have all recorded their hits here.
Nashville, Tennessee, the country and western music capital of America. Where once mountain people sang their songs in isolated valleys, there now stands a music kingdom resting on a booming entertainment and recording industry that tops $500 million gross per year. In recent years, the major recording companies and more than a dozen smaller independents opened modern recording studios in this valley town to meet the now greater demand for the Nashville sound in music markets across the country and abroad.
When Nashville's first recording studios popped up, they were centered around WSM radio station, which broadcast from within the Ryman Auditorium, home to the Grand Ole Opry. A few years later, the studios moved over to the Music Row area, just a couple miles away. Just a 2-square-mile neighborhood of southwest Nashville, Music Row quickly became the mecca of the city's music industry in the early 1960s. Though the area seems quite residential from the outside, most of the buildings on Music Row are commercial music studios, record labels, or music publishing companies. Nashville had one of the fastest growing economies since the recession of 2008, growing nearly 4.5% annually, more than double the national average. In 2013 alone, capital investment in Nashville topped $1 billion, and nearly 7 million square feet of new space was built in the region. And Music Row studios found themselves fighting against the city's rapid development.
When I got here 24 years ago, the music business was centered on Music Row. And the beauty of that is when I wanted to get something done, I could walk to wherever I needed to walk to go meet with somebody face to face. What we've seen over, I think, the last 10 years is that has been watered down. You know, there's labels are no longer all located on Music Row. They've left Music Row. They've gone down to Cumming Station. They've gone over to West End. They've gone to different areas. So the Music Row being that central location, it's not really the central location anymore. And when you lose that, you lose the cohesiveness, it allows for those outside influences to come in, I think, and I believe that's what's happened in this case.
2 years ago, Brandon Metcalf moved to Nashville to start a recording studio on Music Row.
Nashville was a dream starting from 2008 or 9, I think. There was a project that I came out here for and got to experience the way that records are made in Nashville, and I got to witness firsthand, you know, being in the studio with the type of session musicians that are here. And from that point on, it was like, that's where I need to be.
But last year, Brandon received notice that his studio was sold to a developer whose intention was to tear the building down to make way for new development.
It will be torn down, and there will be some sort of condos or apartments, I'm not sure which one it is, but some sort of a high-rise built in its place. Thinking about it get torn down, yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's gonna be weird driving past that road that I've driven past every day for the last few years and see something else in its place, but I guess I've kind of been prepared for that because that's been happening all over that area. I mean, it's like, it's been going on literally across the street from the studio for the past, year or two, and so you've seen things that were either open lots or that were smaller things that have gotten knocked down and they're large apartment buildings in their place now.
Brandon's studio, Destiny Nashville, operated from within Soundshop Studios. Acts like Paul McCartney and the Wings recorded there in the early 70s. Though there were rumors of the building being for sale, Brandon was taken by surprise when the owner told him he had finalized a deal with the developer.
We had received notice that they had received an offer, and there were a lot of details that weren't very clear, and so it was kind of just a waiting game for a period of time where we were waiting to see if it was really even going to go through, or was it going to close, or was the sale going to happen. And it was all contingent upon them purchasing several other pieces of property. So that was the confusing part, is it wasn't just my building, it was essentially every piece of property on the whole block.
When the word finally came that they would be forced to move, Brandon prepared for one last bittersweet recording session.
Elvis recorded about 120 records in A and B. So there were songs that were recorded in here that were mixed there, vice versa. Dolly Parton loved this room. She recorded her album Jolene here.
Jolene, 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 I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Jolene, 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 please don't take him just because you can.
This is the largest open recording space, which makes it so incredibly popular. It's one of the reasons why we have a lot of international artists and orchestras that want to record here. The Nashville Symphony has had several Grammy awards for records that they've done, all of which were recorded in here. We recently had an 82-piece orchestra in here with a grand piano, with a conductor's podium, and we still had room in the space.
RCA Studio A is currently run by Ben Folds, a singer, songwriter, and record producer who you may recognize from acts such as Ben Folds 5. In June of 2014, Folds and the Studio A team got notice that the building was to be sold to a local developer who had every intention of leveling it off to make way for condos. After negotiating with the developer got him nowhere, Ben decided to take action the only way he knew how, by rallying the community and creating a campaign to raise awareness about the fate that awaited Music Row if they didn't act soon.
The thing about history is when we're in the moment, in the creative moment making it, we don't realize it. But after this building, and after the one 2 doors down, 25 years from now, people will want to know where Carrie Underwood, Casey Musgraves, and Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson and Taylor Swift made their records and wrote their songs. We don't realize that because we're making it right now, but we didn't know that everybody would come here to revisit our history over and over and over again. There's no reason why preservation and development can't exist on the same lot at the same time in Nashville.
If Studio A was lost, another piece of Nashville's music history would be lost as well.
A studio, the way you need to look at it is it's not just a place where music's made, it's a place where creative collaboration happens. I've seen artists come in and there's something about being in a studio surrounded by other artists or musicians or what have you that just, it almost forces this creative collaboration. And you can't get that when you're by yourself working in a home studio or you're, off with a small crew somewhere else. The larger the room, the bigger the entourage, the more of that you're going to have happen. And the result is just more incredible creativity.
Another save today for Historic Nashville, a group that works to preserve some of Music City's most iconic locations.
This evening, RCA's Historic Studio A, where stars including Willie Nelson and Miranda Lambert have recorded some of their big hit songs, has escaped the wrecking ball.
At the 11th hour, a local preservationist named Aubrey Preston outbid the current developer, making his intentions clear that he wanted to preserve the building.
Thanks for coming. Last time we were standing here was in June, and I just played, came off the road. I played with the National Symphony Orchestra the night before. And now I can't believe the building's still here, and that Sharon Corbett House was not strapped to the building as she was going to be on CNN, I would tell you. Yeah, and since then, I mean, so much has happened, and Aubrey Preston, Chuck Eklund, and Mike Herb all stepped up in a huge way to save this place.
After Studio A was saved, Ben Folds and his team turned their attention to saving what was left of Music Row.
One of the things that we realized once this organization was formed, we started meeting with the city and found out certain things. For example, no one in the history of the city has ever mapped Music Row. People have talked about Music Row for years, but it's never been really defined. So we're mapping it. No one's ever done a true historical deep dive into the history of Music Row. There's all these anecdotal stories. So we have historians that are working on that story.
Well, what I really wish the city had done was moderate what they allowed on Music Row. While I don't want to be old and kind of stuffy on this issue and say that there should be no modernization of Music Row, to allow the unfettered growth, it seems like, and to allow some of these monster buildings to be being built, it doesn't fit with the other buildings. And you would hope that what the developers would do would then build to match the environment. And instead, what they're allowing, what I think the city's allowed them to do, is the developers are now getting to define what the environment is. And then it's going to be little buildings like mine that have to adapt to what's going on around them, and it should have been vice versa.
Due to the amount of recording studios that have been bought and displaced on Music Row, music producers are now creating new music enclaves around the city by starting brand new recording studios. Brandon is now in the process of building a brand new studio out of a 10,000 square foot factory warehouse from the 1940s.
I was looking at so many different options, and this one kind of popped up, and you know, it was a dump. It really was, and it's still like such a huge work in progress, but it was just in kind of rough shape, and I kind of loved that. And so like being able to look at it and see the potential for starting it back to ground zero, you know, clearing out everything that was in here and creating a space and a community for us to be doing several different things within one building. And there's so much unique charm and character to this space, which is what I really, really wanted for my next studio.
Even though he has found a new location to run his studio, Brandon still feels that something important is being lost.
Right now we've started to see like weird things pop up on Music Row that shouldn't be there, I think. Weird businesses that really don't fit in and don't quite make sense there. But at the end of the day, was it the building that made it historical, or was it the things that happened there? Or, I mean, how do you determine that is the hard thing. You know, even in my studio, I mean, there's like so many huge records made there, but it's like, well, does the building need to be preserved for that? I don't know. It's hard to say. Angry isn't the right word. A lot of my friends are angry about what's happening, and people that have been here way longer than I am. I mean, I really don't have as much of a right to be mad because I'm one of those people that moved here too. And so I can't say, oh, well, Nashville needs to stop growing or whatever, because it's like I've only been here for a couple years myself. People that have been here longer than I have, some of them are mad, and some of them just think that it's part of the natural progression and growth of the city. So it's really about finding the balance between those two things, and preserving some of that history as well as just some of that charm and some of the way that people do business here and record music here, and I think that you can still do that without it all being on Music Row.
Brandon has now been in his new studio for a little over a month and is starting to see some good progress.
I was kind of scared when we first started the move, honestly.
Why?
And I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to like do what we did in the old studio in the warehouse like this. I mean, Jeremiah has building experience. I don't know how much building experience Brandon really has. I don't know. I think he's built a couple houses in his life. But
Never on my own though.
I was concerned. I was like, there's no heat in here. There's no air conditioning yet. Everything looks abused. And where we came from, it was like a musical environment for decades, you know?
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, it was like big records are getting cut there. People are comfortable. It was made to create music. And this place was made to sweat it out and just get the shift done. And so now it's like, it's cool because we're some hardworking people, and when the rest of Nashville is, you know, just gonna buy $1 million studio, we're gonna take something that you thought was the underdog and we're gonna make it big. So I mean, I think it's awesome.
Do you feel proud about what you guys
Yeah,
have
I'm
done
really
here?
proud of everything. I even had my girlfriend come by and I was like, yo, I was building stuff, you know. Check it out, I screwed that. You see that screw? That's me. That one screw. And you know what? Because of this, I look at studios differently now. Like, I look at recording spaces differently. Because, like, when I look at a recording studio, I used to just look at, oh, there's a cool mic, and that place is fun to look at. But now you realize there's somebody who went and designed it, and somebody who went and put in all the walls, and someone who soundproofed it, and you know, it took a lot of people and a lot of effort to make that kind of come together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to do that with just a couple guys and some volunteers. So, I mean, the fact that we're getting anywhere close to these really nice Nashville studios, and honestly, I think our studio is going to be one of the funner ones to be in. So, it's something to be proud of.
Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Are you feeling optimistic about everything? Like,
Yeah.
How are your energy levels? You've been in this for like a month and a half, right?
I mean, it's exhausting for sure, but and it's also just stressful trying to manage and plan and think about, like, you really have to plan like 8 steps ahead. And so we're like, today I'm thinking like 3 weeks from now, what do I need to be sure that I have ordered or done or prepared or ready for that thing, so that we don't get to that point and then have to wait a week for something else to get done or get delivered or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's consuming a lot of brain power and energy, but I feel really good about how it's turning out, and it's really cool to be, I mean, every day you get to see this vision of a space that I had kind of imagined coming to life. And so you go from like, I mean, literally I drew out like, and I'm the worst drawer ever, but I drew out kind of like the layout for how I wanted this thing to be and work and function. And then to like be standing here a month later and see it coming to life is a pretty cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the future of Nashville, and what's the place for our cultural landmarks and our heritage? And I think particularly important for those of us in this room today is the question, do we want to imagine Nashville without a music road? Well, I don't, and I don't think you do either. It's the heart and soul of this great city, and it's definitely a national treasure. So I'm delighted to be here today to officially name Music Row as one of the National Trust for Historic Preservation's national treasures.
When you're really, really busy, it's always better in your mind at the time, let's just take the easier road because we're so busy with other stuff. But again, I think what the dialogue that we saw that was generated by this studio fight made people in the industry stop and take notice that we have to pay closer attention to this. I believe there's so many more people in the industry now that recognize that we have to protect places like this.